Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
You guys keep up the good work, man. Podcasts are the way of the future.
Welcome in, everybody, to the latest edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John McEnroe. Joining me via telephone, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. I'm back, baby. It felt good to take a vacation. Man, 8 days in the sun, the heat, the humidity. I spent a lot of time in the pool. I swam. I do look like Josh Johnson, and I am here, sitting here in the big chair, excited to talk to my cousin, recorded the Doc and Jock podcast. What up, cuz?
Dude, how was your trip?
It was a great trip, man. Much needed. Definitely, when you're going strong, you're working, you're doing things. But really, when you take time to just leave, go on a trip and have a good time, it was awesome. Spent time with the family. It was all good, man. Florida's great. It was an interesting time there in Florida where it was sunny 98% of the time, and then it would have this quick spit of rain for 20 minutes. It'd break the humidity for an hour, and then it would go about being a nice hot time. And it was good to see the sun. It was good to get out to Miami Marlins Park. Got to hang with the nephew, the kids. So all in all, it was a great trip. Much needed. I'm back safely. I was telling you before we started, the flight situation, forget about it. I'm not a good flyer. I definitely would prefer to drive. But at the same time, you can't beat a 2.5 hour flight in the grand scheme of things. But I can admit here freely, I popped my first Xanny, baby. I had to, man. My tummy was rumbling, man. It was, if you, look, everybody knows, I think, through the podcast, I'm not the best flyer. I've flown once maybe in the last 7 years. And so Tuesday, getting there early was great. 10 o'clock flight, boom, we're there, 12:30, 1 o'clock, no problem. Returning, we took a 6 o'clock flight, and I'm sitting there thinking about it all day, and you just go through all the worst-case scenarios. I can feel the plane moving, and I had a sense. I was checking the weather, and I'm like, okay, there's a chance for storms in either Florida or Detroit, and I'm just full of butterflies. And my wife, Andrea, she's like, look, I've done this now since our marriage. Get on a plane, take a Xanax, you'll feel better. I'm like, no, I'm going to be tough. I'm going to be brave here. I'm not taking no pills. I'm just going to use my techniques. We get up in the air, 6:05 on Tuesday, and I'm like, fuck this, man. This plane's shaking. I'm not dealing with this shit anymore. I can't, because I spent all day using relaxing techniques. I went on the walk on the beach. I'm like, there's 40,000 flights that take off. Nothing's going to happen to you. And at the end of the day, took that Xanax, and it erased the butterflies. It was like, oh, man, I could see why people definitely could become reliant upon that. Now, I didn't get high or anything like that. It just, instantly, I popped that pill. The butterflies were gone, literally gone. And I was like, damn, instant. And it made the flight bearable, but the flight home was bumpy, and the flight attendant was so nice. She's like, look, if we're walking around, then it's pretty much okay, but if they tell us to sit down, then it could be a little bit more serious. But at the same time, I got home. The flight was turbulent as all hell. But at the end of the day, I made it back to Detroit. I'm so happy. Great things happening for the network. Great things happening for the podcast. So all in all, man, it's a good time, and I'm looking forward to talking to you. What's on the agenda? What are we talking about today?
We got Lions and we got college football, because football's right around the corner. So you want to start with the Lions?
Heck yeah, baby. Everyone's still kind of wondering what's going on with Matthew Stafford. Hasn't made an appearance. A lot of quarterbacks have played that are starters in the preseason. Not a lot, but the only ones that haven't played are the ones that have been injured. So obviously on Monday, post the loss to Houston, everyone's asking Stafford, and he's like, nah, man, it's all good. It's a situation where, you know what? I'll play when I'm ready. I'm good. I feel good. I'm not having any effects. He downplayed all that. Obviously, the media is trying to ask Matt Patricia, well, okay, this Friday, is he going to play? We're going to touch on that. But he's coming out and saying at the same time, a little bit secretive, like, look, I will play when I'm instructed to play. But at the same time, when we are observing the Lions, again, we talked about it on last week's podcast, Johnson is okay, but there's still, obviously some rust and some unfamiliarity with that offense. So the preseason performance versus Houston was interesting to watch. There were better plays. There were some things that were impressive, and there were some plays that were not impressive. For me, I looked at it, and the biggest concern that I had was the lack of a pass rush from the defense. I said, man, that's going to be something that I think when you look at it, if you let Deshaun Watson just stand there, and I know it's vanilla, they're not going to show a lot, but to not have really any pressure, you could have a little bit. I think that's the disconnect that the fans have in terms of preseason, and that's where the angst is like, we're being told, and you're told, hey, there's nothing going to be shown. It's vanilla on offense and defense. Because here's the problem. When the regular season hits and it's time to dial it up, it becomes turbulent because the Lions, you cannot expect and trust them to just dial it up. That's why the fans are like, look, they're not saying it because they're not putting two and two together. The reason why the fans are so nervous is they don't have belief that when the bright lights are on and the Lions, put it in full gear, that they're actually going to execute. So they want to see a little bit of it in preseason. They want to see a sack. They want to see at least a solid play. They want to see Stafford throw the ball deep once to Marvin Jones for us to be able to say, okay, maybe we can do it. So when you don't see something, you go, well, is Stafford really going to learn that offense because of the history of the Lions? So I definitely am not a guy that says the preseason means nothing, but at the same time, the Lions definitely have the attitude, and it's a fact. They don't give a shit about results in the preseason. They just want to observe tape, bring in as many guys to compete, and they want us to trust them that, hey, week 1 versus Arizona, with all their injuries, look, you and I are going to predict them to win. Arizona is decimated already, but none of us would be even remotely surprised if week 1 the Lions don't win. So that's where we're at. The preseason goes along, and we'll talk all about it because some people are looking at it how you and I are and going, damn, there's some plays here that look like there's no point.
Yeah, well, see, look, the lack of a pass rush was the big thing I took out of the game too. You have to realize that they're not playing without 4 of their top 5 defensive linemen. So it's a lot of secondary guys. Now, that being said, you would expect your depth at secondary, your backup positions would be good enough to at least put some pressure on a quarterback. They didn't do that. Overall, I thought that game was okay. I mean, you've seen a few more better things, but overall, it was still just kind of a crapshoot of a game. And like you said, they're just bringing guys in. They're just out there running the most vanilla bland plays, bringing guys in, trying guys out. I expect when we get to see Matt Stafford put the pads on, I'm assuming you're going to see Marvin Jones put the pads on. Snacks will be out there. I'm assuming Trey Flowers will be out there. I'm assuming all these guys will be out there, and you'll see more of the finished product for at least a series or 2. I don't know if you're going to see him for an entire quarter this Friday, but you're going to see him for at least a quarter or 2, and I think that's what you're going to have to gauge this team on. Now, injuries do happen. You've got to play for injuries. It's the National Football League. Not for long is what it stands for. So you've got to have guys who are capable taking the rock and toting it or next man up. And right now, I'm not really seeing that out of any of these guys.
And so, I want to ask you this because I think it lends to this question. Are the Lions taking, and other coaches as well, because the Lions are not the only ones doing it, okay? Mm-hmm. Many people are de-emphasizing the preseason. They don't want nobody to get hurt. They want to make sure that all their key contributors are going to be there opening night and be there for the season when it really counts. But is that the right approach, especially for an organization that doesn't have a winning culture? And I think that's the big disconnect. I think for the Lions, look, injuries happen, and I know that you will be second-guessed. Obviously, people are wondering, well, you had an injury already to curse. Look, injuries happen. You can play that card. You get forgiven a little bit more. And I just think that the Lions, because people are so critical of them, they're so hypersensitive that they don't want to have an injury. But at the same time, you can't have it where you're so vanilla, so bland, that you just expect when it's game week that you're going to execute. It just doesn't work like that, or at least it doesn't work like that for the Lions. And so that's why I think the attitude is wrong. And if I were coaching the team, I'd want to go balls to the wall. I'd want to see some of these guys. Now, not everybody, but at least one. At least in the first game, you feature Galladay. The second game, you feature Jones. You only have to do it for a series. And if a freak accident happens in a series, then that's what it is. It's professional football. But I just think that The question is it the right approach to take this approach in the preseason where, look, it's just evaluation, let's just evaluate the scrubs, and when the season comes, we hope we dial it up?
Well, I think going into the season, you have a clear-cut idea of who's going to be your starting end, who's going to be your starting quarterback. So for that purpose, yeah, I totally get why you're just going to kind of play the secondary guys. You're going to play some backup positions. I wouldn't necessarily call them scrubs, John. These guys still are elite athletes. They're just, not the top of the heap. But all that being said, I get what you're saying, but at the same point, you want to protect your guys for when the games matter. So if Matt Stafford only plays 1 or 2 series this entire offseason, I'm okay with that. As long as he's getting the reps in practice and he's not taking 6 days off in practice, or if he's going to the scrimmages or the joint held practices with Houston or New England, and he's throwing during those events, because it's not like it's a live game rep, but you're going up against number ones. Ones who are trying to show themselves up and show you up. So I don't need him to play every single game. I don't need him to play every single down. I do need him to play a couple, but all that being said, I have no problem with them giving it to the secondary guys. I know that their history is trash. I know that this is a losing organization. I just pulled up the last 10 years worth of records for every team in the NFL. And the Detroit Lions are the 6th worst. So they're not a good franchise overall. But all that being said, I think you're trying to preserve the guys' bodies. In a sport where there's a car accident that happens every single crash, you're trying to preserve the guys' bodies, and that's what they're trying to do here.
So
and I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
You agree with the preseason philosophy. You would roll the same way. You would evaluate. You would probably sit Stafford for the majority of the preseason. Maybe in game 3 you feature him a little bit, but at this point in time, you're okay, and you're in favor with how the Lions are addressing the preseason so far.
I get it. Let's just say that. I get it. I understand it. I know what you're saying, and I know what you want. But the organization, I mean, look at their backup quarterback position. It's probably the worst in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So if Matt Stafford gets hurt in week 2 of the preseason, what does that mean for the rest of the season? Do you know what I'm saying? You're basically going to wave a white flag because they did such a crap job bringing in a backup quarterback to support him. So you got to kind of look at how this team was put together and realize one thing kind of goes wrong here, the entire season's done. So you're trying to preserve your season, and you're trying to preserve your team. You're trying to preserve your players. So I get it. I totally get it.
Well, one analyst is definitely taking a serious look at the Detroit Lions and even featured them on film, where he pinpointed several plays where he's just wondering, like, okay, you have Johnson out there. Why are you even calling this play? Brian Baldinger, NFL analyst, he kind of did some film review, and he was wondering, and he was stating quite clearly, he said, look, in preseason, you want to have some execution. He's like, why are you even calling this play? He featured 4 or 5 plays that he felt like were definitely disastrous, and one was a running play featuring C.J. Anderson. He definitely highlighted that the offensive line looked like they did not know how to block, and so his question was, what indeed are you practicing if this is what you're showing on tape? And so what he's kind of saying is, look, there's a degree of vanilla that you can show. You can't go out there and get pancaked by Houston, especially after you've practiced with them. Now, of course, he's highlighting a select few plays, and many people didn't really take it seriously because of the fact that Johnson has only been here 5 days, and they just kind of accepted that, hey, this is Josh Johnson. This guy's not going to be the savior, but, at the end of the day, he is brought in for competition to light a fire under fails, maybe, which maybe happened in that preseason game versus Houston. But does Brian Baldinger have a point? Did he kind of just cherry pick some bad plays, or is he right? Is he more in line with what we're thinking or what I'm thinking, in that, hey, it's preseason, there's more to show than what they did, that he expects, look, yeah, I'm not expecting wins. I don't care about the end result, but when you go out there and your job is to block, and I see the Houston Texans pushing back to a degree that he saw, he was not happy, and he basically said the Lions are shit.
I have to agree. I mean, when it comes down to that, that's on those guys. That's on those guys in those trenches, and they're getting bullied. They're getting pushed around. Basically, you got Houston taking their lunch money from them, and they don't know how to get it back. And that's what that is. I agree with Brian Baldinger. I think he's right. This was a really bad display by the Detroit Lions. It wasn't very good. Overall, the game itself wasn't very good. All that being said, they're not showing you anything, and there are certain things that you have to show. I'm aware, but it's preseason, man. This is your third string quarterback who's in there right now. I don't know exactly what you want. I don't know what you're exactly expecting to get here. Yeah, you want this guy to show that he can digest the offense. He can make a couple throws. He can play a little bit, but dude, I don't know what you want. I really don't know what you want, because it's your third quarterback, and these are all second and third string guys. So what do you necessarily want? Yeah, hold each one of these guys accountable. I get that. I totally understand that.
Okay, because I look at it like this.
I don't know what you want, though.
Yeah, what you want is, the belief is, look, even though you're a third stringer, even though, you're not likely going to be the guy and be called upon to be the guy, at least go out there and make a play that's called for you. Don't look like you don't belong. And that's the issue with the Lions, is that when they have guys that are, what you would call on the depth chart the third and fourth stringers, they look like third and fourth stringers.
But doesn't the coaching staff know what they've got here in each one of these individual players? So why put them in a position where they're going to fail?
That's the nature of the complaint, is that many people believe that's all the Lions ever do, is put every talent in a position to fail, because of the fact that really how many diamonds in the rough can you name where you go, okay, unless it's the star guy that's making a boatload of money, who have the Lions really, really developed where you go, wow, that was a seventh rounder. Now, there have been a couple, but by and large, collectively, what we're seeing is the third and fourth stringers don't look like they belong. They don't pass rush. They don't do what they're supposed to do, or they put stuff on tape that gets them cut. And I think by and large, what we want to see is, okay, for example, you see Stidham for the New England Patriots. Okay, obviously this is a guy that played at Baylor. He's got some success, obviously big arm, but he's dropping dimes. Who's he throwing to? Nobody. And he's dropping dimes in there. And so that's what we want to see, is we want to see maybe a couple guys that are third and fourth on the depth chart come in there and go, whoa, this guy might actually challenge for a job. This guy could make the team. Whereas you and I know, and we're looking at it going, oh man, we kind of can put together the 53-man roster and go, okay, it's going to be these three. It's going to be these guys at these positions, but nobody really lower end at the depth chart is really blowing anybody away on film. And that's what we're all seeing. That's what we are all looking for is, hey, go out there and when you're called upon, make a play, win the battle. And that's why we're all up in arms, really upset in the preseason, is the Lions are kind of taking the brunt end of it from the teams that they've played so far. But at the end of the day, we all know, and that's the caveat, is I think the organization and Patricia doesn't care. He's looking at, hey, make a play, go out there and win the job. But unfortunately, nobody really, at the end of the day, that's why they keep bringing in new wide receiver after new wide receiver, because nobody really is really demanding that they're going to take that fourth job, that fourth spot. Nobody is just really clear-cut going, hey, I'm going to take the bull by the horns. I'm going to be a guy that makes this team. But at the end of the day, I do kind of agree with you and say, okay, if that's the attitude they're going to take, they're going to at least be healthy going into the regular season. But I don't have faith that when it's time to just push the button and go, that they're actually going to go. And I'm just a guy that's like, hey, practice what you preach, go out there in the preseason and show some things. That's why this third game is so important, and I want to get your sense of what you need to see. Because remember, Matt Patricia, and I think many people have given him the benefit of the doubt in the preseason, but remember last year's third preseason game, it was not good. It was not good. We both noted, whoa, we both said it. I remember distinctly. We both said, isn't this supposed to be your dress rehearsal? So this game versus Buffalo at home, CBS, you better not have a bunch of penalties. You better not get pancaked if you're the offensive line. You better not have Johnson and Fales look like they're going to get destroyed or having us pray for them. This game against the Bills will be one in which I am in regular season mode in terms of evaluation. This game coming up, you're supposed to be prepping like it's a regular game week. Stafford should play probably a half, maybe even if it's less, he's going to at least play the first quarter. So I would expect that this game versus the Bills, we start to see some good plays. We start to see a pass rush. We start to see maybe one series where the vaunted defensive line goes out there and sacks the quarterback a lot of times. So this Bills game for me, in terms of what I expect execution. I expect the Lions to look like a football team that's worthy of being out there, especially in front of the fans. The fans are starving for something. So go out there and make plays, try to avoid injury, and at least look like you know and understand the concepts that are being demanded of you from the coaching staff.
You stupid bastard. Come on. Are you for real?
I'm expecting that. Yeah, I have to.
This is a Matt Patricia ran team. Everything is vanilla. Matt Stafford's going to play 2 series, probably. All right. You'll get Marvin Jones out there for maybe 2 or 3 series. God. You'll get a couple of the starters on the defensive front out there for a couple of series, and that's going to be about it. Look, the way you can take this game is when the starters are in, right? Or when the majority of the starters are in. If the Lions come out with a win at, we'll say, the end of the first quarter or the end of the half, take that as the win, because the final score is not going to be indicative of what's going to happen. All right? It just isn't. They are going to play everybody in a super vanilla front. They're going to play Matt Stafford. He's going to go out there. He's going to throw the ball around a little bit. The moment he gets hit, he's coming out. You're going to have Marvin Jones. He's going to streak down the field a little bit. Maybe they'll throw one deep to him. Who knows? You're going to have Trey Flowers. You're going to have Snacks. You're going to have that entire defensive front, which looks to be pretty sweet, actually. It made Pro Football Focus's top 10. So that's a pretty high honor, especially going into the season. So you're going to have those guys out there, and I expect them to get a little bit of pressure on Josh Allen. I expect them to cause a little bit of a ruckus up in the front there. But all that being said, it's all going to be vanilla-based packages. It's all like unless your job is to scheme and block, or if there's like some way that you can just get into the backfield, that's how you're going to get that pressure. I'm not expecting them to dial anything up. I'm not expecting them to show anything. And on top of all that, the guys that you really want to see are probably only going to be out there for maybe a quarter. Maybe.
Oh, so I hear what you're saying. You're like, bro, take another Xanax and dial back your expectations. Don't pop your Xanax, bro. That's not what's your Doc's going to be like, all right, I'm going to take some notes. And he's going to be like, oh, Stafford's handing it off 5 times and he's out. You're like, take your
That's what it's going to be, man.
So
look, this is what Patricia does, right? Like, I think Patricia's learned a ton. I think he has learned a ton from last season. All right. Last season was growing pains for him. And I think he's taken a lot of that into this year. And I think the way he's put this team together and the way he's handled things in this preseason is because of what happened last year. And it's a concerned effort to get these guys to the start of the season healthy and to get these guys as digestive of the playbook and as in tune with everything that is possible, and to try to roll them out there as much as possible. That's what it is. Or as little as possible, I should say.
I actually kind of like it that you and I are more passionate than the Lions are. They're like, dude, dial it back. What are you looking at, dude? Everyone's like, it's across the board, and that's what you hear online. Relax, it's nothing. But at the same time, when you're a competitor and you want to see some things, when you want to see good plays, you want to see good players, I guess at the end of the day, we're all just ready for the regular season. Can it be September already? Can it be Lions-Arizona week? We need it to be Lions-Arizona week because we're trying to digest week 2 preseason games at the level of a regular season contest. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of good competitive battles at wide receiver, backup tight end, offensive line. So look at those. Those are interesting across the board. I like the fact they keep bringing in new talent and trying to really achieve some things. But I think one of the big position battles, I think in the coming weeks, you and I will talk about it, is who should get the secondary carries behind Kerryon Johnson? Should it be Zach Zenner? Should it be C.J. Anderson? Who's going to emerge in that third and fourth wide receiver role? Those are things we're going to peek into in the coming weeks here on Doc and Jock, and we'll look at those things for sure. Great football talk. Yes.
Hey, look at it this way, all right? So we've got basically one more weekend of no college football, and then Michigan and Michigan State play in like 10 days or so. Not 9-10 days. There you go.
It's coming, baby. It's coming. We're going to talk about college football in the second half of the podcast. I do want to show love to two sponsors, the Flick Chat application and the Motor City Pawnbrokers. Without great sponsors, we wouldn't be able to keep the lights on, wouldn't be able to pay our phone bill so that you and I could conversate each and every week, and we're able to broadcast to the masses because of great sponsors, including the Motor City Pawnbrokers. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for quality, brand-name new, and pre-owned merchandise. With locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. For all information regarding the Motor City Pawnbrokers and to check out all the great deals, go today. Visit MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. Now, if you agree with Adam and you're like, Doc, chill out, or you completely disagree and you're like dialed in like me, you agree with Brian Baldinger, definitely go over and download the Flick Chat application. What is Flick, you ask? Well, it's real simple. It's an application where you can go and chat with other Detroit sports fans that are just as passionate as we are, and you can create your own forums if you're a fan of professional wrestling, if you're a fan of preseason games, or if you're a fan of the NBA, Red Wings, Tigers. If you're definitely in the mix, definitely join Flick. It's real easy. You download the Flick Chat application, and you join the Detroit Sports Podcast group by hitting the plus button, and our group name is all lowercase DSP. Or if you're around social media, you follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. We'll send out invite links periodically. Definitely don't miss out. Be a part of Detroit Sports' newest sports headquarters. Join the Flick Chat application. All right, cuz we're starting to see it. We're starting to see rankings. We're starting to see people talk about who's being named captain. We're starting to see and question a little bit about, Jim Harbaugh's offense. What is he going to be willing to do with Josh Gaddis? What's his role going to be? Michigan State, the questions on their offense and their staff. It's a great time to be peeking into college football, and I love it. I love the fact that you and I are going to talk about it. It's that time, baby. Michigan State. 2 big years ahead for coaches. Last week, if you listen to Doc and Jock, we talked a little bit about who's got big-time pressure on them. It's a big-time year for both Jim Harbaugh and Mark D'Antonio. It's a great time. But you saw it, I saw it, and everybody paid attention. Oh, Michigan named their captains. Every year you name your captains, but a name that was not listed, kind of surprising, quarterback Shea Patterson is not a captain. Do you take this at the level of, like Michigan State with Connor Cook, or do you say, come on, that was overblown and so was this?
No, this blew my mind. When Michigan released the names of their captains and Shea Patterson wasn't one of them, I was like, that's weird. That's different. And then I said it out loud, and the wife was like, what's wrong? What's going on? I was like, so Michigan's quarterback is not their captain. I was like, that's strange, and I don't know why. Normally, you want your captain to be your quarterback, unless he's Connor Cook. Yeah, this is very perplexing to me. I'm confused by it. Now, all the news about Shea Patterson coming out of Michigan's camp is that he's setting the world on fire with this new offense. He totally understands it. He digests all of it, and he can make the plays and make the reads. I don't know why he's not a captain. That this I don't understand this. Is it because he was a transfer? Is that why? I don't understand.
Well, maybe I can help dial it in. Maybe we'll tease it for another topic next week. is he actually the quarterback that will be standing and taking snaps by the end of the season? Is he the best quarterback even on that roster? So maybe, just maybe, out of respect for Shea, they're giving him the starting nod, but everybody knows that, you know what? The true captains are the guys that are going to be leaders and things like that, and they got to be guys that at the end of the year are actually going to have a chance to play significant amount. And right now it's kind of small. It's being debated in inner circles and things like that, but I hear things. I hear the whispers that maybe, just maybe, Shea Patterson's not the quarterback that could potentially be the guy that ends the year. Similar to Clemson, I think a lot of Michigan fans are going, you know what? Trevor Lawrence wasn't starting for Clemson, and all of a sudden he emerged, and he took, that's why Dabo Swinney got a lot of credit for last year, was he displayed a big, huge set of nuts, and he benched his starting quarterback for another guy who potentially now is going to be the talk of the town, the hot, new, sexy quarterback. It could potentially happen to Michigan, too, where, hey, if in the Army game he doesn't look that good, or if versus Notre Dame he reverts back to the guy that holds the ball too long or is missing open receivers, maybe, just maybe, you got that backup that could look good if he gets in the game.
So are your sources telling you it's a guy with the initials JM or a guy with DM?
DM, I think. Right now. I think
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
and I like that. I believe me, I like that. Look, everything that I seen out of him last year, I made me sit up in my seat. I loved him. I thought he was great. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, chomp on that. We'll definitely go and do a deep dive next week on that. But I think that's why Shea Patterson probably not named the captain. But I don't think it's a big deal. I'm not in that camp that says, oh my gosh, because at the end of the day, leaders have to be selected by the team. And I look at it like, let's not focus on the fact that Shea didn't get it. Let's focus on the three captains that did earn it, and they got to do the job of rallying the troops. They are tasked with making sure that the offense does take care of business, and really, at the end of the day, that offense is going to be key because that defense kind of is the strength of the team. They have a system in place. Don Brown has, obviously put some guys into the NFL, and more people are more confident in that defense to start the year, at least. Obviously, in the bigger games, everybody across the board has to step it up. So for me, I'm not that concerned that Shea Patterson's not the captain.
I am, but it's because of what the position means. It's what the position carries. Now, if you're going to tell me that in a couple months he's not going to be the captain anymore, or he's not going to be the quarterback anymore, it's gonna default to Dylan McCaffrey. Okay, cool. No big deal. Then I understand.
I'll ask you this. Are you happy with Shea being the quarterback if he does end up start to finish the quarterback? Can he get you to where you guys want to be? Are you okay if Shea is the quarterback? Can you say, you know what, others got to step it up? Shea can just be a game manager, definitely extend plays, make some things happen? Or do you say, you know what, Shea's got to step his game up, and if he's going to be the quarterback, he has to be the guy that takes over the Michigan offense and is the guy that is the best in the Big Ten and definitely in the Eastern Conference?
I think he holds all the tools to own the Big Ten. I really do. I think he's got a good enough arm. I think he's got elusive legs. I think the one thing that he creates is out of his play action. He opens up seams, and he has a little bit of wiggle where he can shimmy and shake down the sideline and pick you up some yards if a play breaks down. I think he has all the tools. I really do. I think he does. All that being said, I think Dylan McCaffrey has a higher ceiling. So if we were to put these two players like in a Madden, one right now, his overall is like 87, and the other one's like an 83. But the one has a potential of like 92. The other one has like a potential of 97. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's the consensus. Oh, okay. We'll talk more about it. We'll do a deep dive because I do think that you're probably right. And maybe even the guy with the JM initials might have a chance also as well. And I think you'll get a chance to see that early on, hopefully, when Michigan destroys their first opponent. Obviously, the first games are always cupcake games. And so hopefully that offense will at least show some things similar to what we expect with Michigan State. Obviously, everyone's talking about, and I guess the interesting part coming out of Michigan State media is everybody's obviously asking the offense, the offensive coaches, the players, so what's this offense going to look like? And at the end of the day, they're being coy. They're just saying things like, we got to show some things, we got to do some things, we got to execute. Obviously, they're trying to hide exactly what they're trying to do. and they're not really being forthright in terms of their expectations or what's going to happen. So the big question marks are going to be who are going to be emerging at wide receiver and running back, and Brian Lewerke, what kind of season is he going to have? But again, one key aspect that you have to look at whenever you look at a team is who's coaching the team. And so MSU did get a little sneaky with their contracts for the offensive coordinators and maybe potentially trying to light a fire under them. But at the end of the day, many people that are fans of Michigan State are looking at it and saying, look, you can shuffle the deck, but what we really want is change the play calls. Stop being so antiquated where the belief is run on first down, run on second down, and even though 9 times out of 10 you're staring 3rd and 6 in the face and you don't execute. We want the offense. Can the offense, basically the biggest question mark, and I don't know if it's being asked this way and that bluntly, do you think that this run-based offense can really work in 2019? Do you have to open it up, spread the ball out? Do you have to include some concepts? And they have to. I really do believe that if Michigan State exclusively runs this ball control offense and relies on that defense, it can get them wins. But can it get them the ultimate prize? I think the odds say that you would have to build a top 2 defense in the entire realm of college football to achieve that. And so the easier path would indicate, hey, catch up to the times, run an offense that would be a little bit more exciting, a little bit more razzle-dazzle, a little bit more risk-reward because of the fact that, hey, you got a quarterback that could execute it. But Michigan State, they're coy. They're going to be, I think, a team that is old school. With Mark D'Antonio, you're not going to see a bunch of razzle-dazzle. You'll see a little, maybe a little razzle with the D, but you're not going to see razzle-dazzle. You're not going to see Clemson. And that's what we want. Obviously, if you look at Clemson's offense versus State's offense, who are you going to take? I just don't think I'm confident enough in those coaches to take us to the promised land. That's just a fact.
Yeah, I'm not confident in Michigan State's coaches to take you to the promised land either. I find it, you know what? I find it very interesting that Mark D'Antonio isn't confident about his coaches either.
Yeah,
he restructured their contracts to where he can basically get out of them at the end of this year and every year after that. Instead of having a 2-year rollover, now they have a 1-year rollover. So now he's off the hook for any money that might be owed to these guys. So I don't even think Mark D'Antonio's confident in what he did or how he situated that offensive room. So it's going to be some semblance of the ground and pound. That's what Mark D'Antonio brought to Michigan State. It's what's been there. It's what wins in the Big Ten, right? Kind of. Look, Michigan State likes to run the ball. All right. All that being said, they have some gifted wide receivers. They have what looks to be a pretty good wide receiver room. I don't know why you wouldn't try to incorporate a little bit more vertical threats downfield, try to pass the ball a little bit more, open things up just a little bit more, and maybe try to run some plays outside instead of run up the middle all the time. All that being said, it'll be interesting to see what this offense puts on the field. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody really knows. All we know is that the deck chairs got moved around on the Titanic, and it was hoping that they would kind of counterbalance, and all the weight that was filling in the bowels wouldn't sink the ship. So we're going to see. You basically get a 1-year trial to see if this works out. I don't know if it will. I have no idea. I hope Michigan State's a competitive team. I really do. Nothing makes me happier than beating Michigan State when they're competitive. I don't see this having a high ceiling for Michigan State.
Yeah, I think that's fair across the board. Many people are kind of looking at it like 9-3, 10-2 is probably the acceptable marker for Michigan State, but it's going to be hard to execute. I think they're going to probably, at their ceiling, probably have 9 wins. It's just really tough because of the fact that, hey, how is that defense going to respond? Are they going to stay healthy? Can the run game actually emerge? But look, there are times when you question Mark D'Antonio and he has a rebound year. And look, in college football, defense wins championships. And if you can build that elite defense and Mark D'Antonio has the big ego to believe that he can build it, you never know. But if you put Michigan State up against Clemson, I just don't see Michigan State's defense stopping Clemson on any level, especially with the abilities that they have. So that's just the way it is. And, nationally, I think the respect is not there. I mean, I see in the first AP rankings that come out, Michigan State's ranked 18th and Michigan is ranked 7th. When really, in reality, I think just based on talent, I think it should be reversed. I think Michigan State should be ranked higher because that defense was coming off of an enormously awesome season in terms of putting up production, stopping people. Their biggest weakness was that offense, and now you got a healthy Brian Lewerke. I think realistically, the fair preseason ranking would be to have it flipped. So I think that Michigan is overrated, and I think that Michigan State is underrated at this point in time.
Please explain. Please explain how Michigan's overrated. I get what you're saying about Michigan State. I get that.
Okay,
but
now Michigan.
I just don't
10.
understand Michigan.
Okay, you look at it and you go, there's a lot of question marks in terms of wide receiver, who's going to take over that running back position. You now have an offensive coach.
Michigan has 3 or 4 wide receivers that are going to be stand-up guys.
Okay, now,
all right.
Now
running back is a question mark. Running back's a huge question mark because Chris Perry's an idiot.
Yeah, you have a coach in Josh Gaddis who's never really ever called a single play. And how is that going to look? Yes, you can say it looks good in preseason and things like that, but in the crunch moments when you have to call a play, what kind of play call are you going to run? And everyone just expects, okay, we got a new system, it's going to run flawlessly. And when you lose the caliber of NFL talent that you lost on defense, and there's question marks regarding whether that defense has been exposed. Good teams have exposed Michigan's defense in terms of the crossing route, how to handle them, how to press them, and how to go mano-a-mano if you have a decent offensive line. I would say that, Michigan's not a 20-25 team. I think that if you want to position Michigan fairly, they're not in the top 10. I would say 11 through 15 would be a realistic position to put them in with the question marks. Now, after 1 or 2 games, quickly, boom, you go from number 11 to number 4. It's not a problem. But in the preseason, with all those question marks, with a new offensive coach, with a quarterback that many people say, well, is he just a guy that can make a couple plays but can't really pass the ball effectively down the field and do some things? That's the team you're going to put number 7? I just think they're overrated.
I think Michigan, what they bring to the table here is that's all fine and good, but you see everything through green and white glasses. Look, Michigan has I feel a much more explosive offense than Michigan State. You're going to see this new inception of it, which I think is going to be pretty good. Also, that defense is solid. It is solid. Yeah, they got exposed on the crossing patterns. If you don't think that Don Brown can't fix that.
Okay, cuz, and yes, obviously I am a Michigan State grad, but I'll give you some homework. And I think you'll find this endeavor to be rewarding and maybe infuriating at the same time.
Okay.
I would like you for the last 10 years to go back and document what the preseason rank for Michigan was, okay? And then go and research what the final ranking was for Michigan.
I already know.
So
I already know.
That would indicate that they're going to probably, odds are,
they're a bigger brand. So they're gonna end up benefiting from it, and they're gonna end up a little bit higher.
So I'm being actually factual in indicating that I think that the 7 ranking is a little bit too high for Michigan.
You're talking out of your ass because you're like, oh, they don't have wide receivers, they don't have running backs, they don't have this, they don't have that. They've got all that stuff. I mean, look, nobody knows what the hell is going to happen at running back. Nobody knows. Okay? The wide receivers are studs. That offense is supposed to be put together to benefit those wide receivers and to benefit that quarterback. That defense, if you could just shore up the crossing routes, I think you'll be okay. I think that defense will be okay. I mean, let's not act like they're not getting a bunch of savages back to play defense for Michigan. You know what I'm saying? Look, Michigan State had a great defense. Great defense. It was top 10 last year. You can't deny that. Their offense was putrid. Putrid. You don't. And the worst part about what Michigan State did, just look at the coaching staff. I mean, we just talked about it. All D'Antonio did was he kept all the same guys in place and just moved them all around. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out and how that's going to benefit you. Could Michigan State be a little low on the totem pole here? I mean, where would you like to put them? Because I'm looking at the rankings right now. We both agree that they're not going to end up in the top 6, right? That's Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, LSU. They're not going to end up there. Michigan's 7th, okay? So after 7th, we'll skip 7. So then it's Florida. Really? So then it's Florida, Notre Dame, Texas, Oregon.
It's all good.
Okay, hold on, wait. All right, so you're good. They don't deserve to be
in the top 10
yet.
Okay,
so not in the top 10 or the top 11. All right, so Texas A&M, Washington, Utah, or Penn State. This is 11 through 15 now.
Okay, I put State 12, Michigan 13.
Okay.
And then I'd move on. I'd go Penn State, Michigan State. I'd go Penn State, Michigan State, Michigan in the preseason, just based on expectation and talent and what's there.
What about UCF? UCF has had I think they've lost one game in their last 26?
Yeah,
26 attempts.
But they're a product of who they play and things like that. So I'm not going to give them respect. Yeah, they'll win all their games, but you put them up against the State. I'll give them some respect, but in the preseason. But when
they were claiming national champions, 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh man, good stuff, cuz. So you're good battle. I think it's fair. I just think that the rankings are more a byproduct of trying to get hype and things like that.
Yes, and that's what it is.
So in essence, I think I'm right, and I won the debate in that Michigan is overrated. Not by a lot. I mean, they're a top 15 team, but I just don't see them being a top 10 team. Now, I do want to get your sense of this too, because it did blow up. One final note here before we get out of here.
Wait, hold on, real quick, because don't lose that train of thought.
Yeah.
Put a bow on that for a quick second. If Michigan, does Michigan's entire season come down to Ohio State for you? I know we've talked about this before. Does their entire season come down to Ohio State?
No, I think probably realistically the game that everyone's going to want to highlight is Penn State. That game always is an interesting contest. Franklin and Harbaugh. I think Penn State, Army, definitely Wisconsin. But the game probably that will be meaningful, if it's not Michigan State, it's going to be Penn State.
Okay.
Definitely mark that down.
I was just curious because you say that they're overrated, but you say that they're only slightly overrated. They're still a top 15 team.
Yeah, I didn't say to the degree. And then, I just don't think they should be 7th. That's all.
And then I'm curious if they were to beat Ohio State, does that change your perspective? Because when you're making your argument, you were talking a lot about the crossing routes and how that basically undid Michigan at Ohio State.
And the big game.
And you just kind of kept throwing all this out there.
We've talked about it.
Curious.
In the big games, Michigan is conservative on offense. Jim Harbaugh seems to revert to...
Jim Harbaugh does a bad job coaching big games.
Exactly. And that's what I got to see. So I'm not a guy that just goes, hey, similar to our talk with the Lions. I just don't go, hey, do nothing in the preseason, and then they're going to dial it up. So I don't look at Michigan's record in the past 10 years and go, hey, they're just going to beat Ohio State. I'm more in line with once you beat Ohio State, then I will push the button of respect. Until then, I will naturally assume that in the big game, you're going to roll over. And I think it's fair. Right. It's fair based on history. Now, I did want to get your sense because it did come out a little bit in regards to reporting. What did you make of Harbaugh v. Fickell in regards to the Hudson transfer? Because I just think that both parties have the right to say what they want to say, but at the end of the day, I'm with Harbaugh. I agree that he said, look, I don't make the decision on who gets this waiver or not, so why is it that I'm getting blamed for it? And he actually was a guy that came out and said, look, I think all students should have a right to transfer once for free. And he did bring up that the thing that kind of concerned people was maybe bringing up the fact that Hudson maybe said he had a mental health problem when it wasn't ever documented. But at the same time, Jim Harbaugh has been open and said, look, I'm pro the athlete. If they want to transfer, go ahead. But at the same time, I don't begrudge him for not like just handing a transfer to somebody else. I think that Michigan did right by Hudson, and the rules are the rules. Now, is the rule right? No. I think Hudson got a raw deal. I think he should be able to play. But I don't agree with Fickell's assessment of the situation and saying, oh, Jim Harbaugh denied us the opportunity to have it, that Michigan should have fought harder for the athlete. And Jim Harbaugh came out and said it. It's not my job.
Yeah, I agree with Harbaugh on this 110%. It's not his job. He has a role. His job is to get his football team ready.
That's it.
If Hudson doesn't want to be on that team, okay, there's the door. Here's the paperwork. You can fill out this paperwork, and you can try to go play for Luke Fickell.
Yeah, exactly.
Knock yourself out.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's kind of how it works.
It's interesting that he brought up that maybe certain athletes could use the mental health side of things and things like that. I hope that athletes wouldn't do that, but if that's the case, that's the easiest thing to do is walk into an office and say, hey, I'm anxious, I'm not a good flyer, or hey, I got butterflies in my tummy, I'm not feeling good. I think that's the easiest way to do it, but you have to get it documented. So that's the hardest thing, is that then you probably have to enact getting some therapy and talking to people like me, and once they walk into my door, they're like, oh, fuck this, I'm healthy. Like, fuck this, I'm fine, no doubt about it. So it was interesting debate back and forth, a little bit of chirping, but yeah, I think you and I are on the same page. Harbaugh definitely stood his ground, and at the same time, it is a bad system all the way around in terms of the fact that, hey, I agree, you should be able to transfer once, and that's it, and be allowed to get out of your deal, especially if a coach that you thought was going to be there just ends up leaving. That really screws the kids over, man. So, hey, all's good, man. I can't wait. I enjoyed the hour talking football. Good stuff, cuz. You can follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Going strong, baby. Episode 316 in the books, and we're fresh. We're ready to go. We're not in preseason mode. We're ready to go. We bring it each and every episode, and that's why you guys have made us one of the leaders in podcasting in the state of Michigan. Thanks, cuz.
Absolutely, cuz. Good time.
It's not over yet, so you can ask me that one next week.
Go Blue, bitch.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. It didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.